Good afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live here on One News. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Wednesday. Okay, let's begin differently this time by taking a look first at AllDay, which debuted on the local bourse earlier today, rightfully so. That's after it soared 50%, reaching the daily limit. It capped off the session at 90 centavos a piece from its IPO price of just 60 centavos. That means the country's richest Manny Villar, who owns the supermarket chain, may have just gotten richer, at least according to estimates made by Bloomberg, that today's jump means a windfall of $90 million. Add to that is already $7.3 billion net worth. That's on top as well of the 4.5 billion peso raised from the initial share sale. Now, Manny Cruz of Papa Security saying, there's huge demand for AllDay, and it looks like the price won't be falling from here anytime soon. Many are holding their share and expectations of more gains here. Recall, of course, that a rival supermarket chain, Merrimart, had a 3-day run, reaching the daily limit of 50% during its first 3 days on the local bourse. But Aaron Sai of First Metro Securities is saying that AllDay has a better potential for wider network compared to Merrimart, considering that the Villars are all over the country, so to speak. That bullishness on AllDay spilling over to the main bourse. You have the main index climbing 1.1% to 7,184. That's over hopes of more easing as COVID cases fall to its lowest since March. Yesterday, that was at 2,300 new infections, at least on Tuesday. For one, curfew hours have already been lifted in Metro Manila. And also tomorrow, you have more easing, at least in public transportation here in NCR. That's maybe one of the reasons why lots of mall operators were bought today on prospects that malls and commercial centers will be benefiting from the relaxing of curbs. The property counter rose by 3.3%, and a number of individual stocks even also making huge gains today here. You have the likes of Ayala Land rising 3.7%. SMPH or SM Prime, the country's largest mall operator, also increasing by as much as 3.6%. Robinson's Land also in the green, up by 1.4%. As you can see in the chart right here, a number of them, of course, are making headway, or at least made headway in today's session. But still, they have avoided this power being the day's best performer after 9-month net income rose 135% to 19.5 billion pesos. As you can see right here, Avoided power is up by 4.8%. Now, also, as you can see here, a number of our lenders are also on the upside here. You have BPI increasing 3.4%. Metrobank likewise adding 1.6%. That's after central bank data showed loan growth quickening in September to 2.7%. That's twice the pace back in August. And of course, we're still in the thick of earnings season. Today, we have Ayala Land reporting that its net income climbed 35% in the first 9 months of the year as business operations improved. That's despite the reimposition of stricter lockdowns from August to September. In the third quarter alone, Ayala Land's profits grew by 38% to 2.6 billion pesos. The company's property development revenue rose 27% last quarter. That's driven by continuing construction and higher bookings. Earnings from office leasing, meanwhile, grew 5%. However, strict pandemic restrictions continue to drag Ayala Land's commercial leasings as well as its hotels and resorts down 18% and 29%. Now, despite mobility restrictions, Ayala Land says it was able to launch 4 new projects worth 13 billion pesos in Laguna, Cavite, Pasay, and Pasig in the third quarter. Ayala Land launched a total of 18 projects from January to September. Now, Century Pacific Food also posted double-digit growth in the third quarter. The firm's net income jumped 22% in the July to September period. That's on the back of sales growth and favorable tax rates. Now, for the first 9 months, Century Pacific Food reports a 12% year on year growth in consolidated revenues due to high third quarter sales in their branded segment. The company says this is driven by the resilience in demand for consumer staples. Over the past few months, Century Pacific Food has also ventured into the pet food category through a new brand called Goodest. It also expanded its daily portfolio into the chocolate malt segment through a new brand called Choco Hero. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. A corporate headhunter says job openings in the country rose 13% in the third quarter from the April to June period. Citing its own survey, Michael Page Philippines said this increase in job openings was fueled by the demand for technology professionals at all levels. Michael Page says employment opportunities in the technology sector climbed 37% from a quarter earlier. It added that the economic demands also increased the need for technology experts with specific field experiences. The headhunter agency also noted an increase in openings in engineering and manufacturing, as well as the finance sector. PEZA will renew its appeal for an outsourcing remote work scheme based on company revenue. That's after the Fiscal Incentives Review Board, or FIRB, stood by its new work from home rules. The FIRB retained its decision to allow outsourcing firms operating within economic zones to keep work from home arrangements until March next year. But there's one condition: these companies must have 10% of their employees on site. PEZA previously said the new rules requiring part of the workforce to physically report to ecozones would cause problems amid the still ongoing pandemic. So their recommendation was to allow remote work for up to 90% of the company's total revenues. Plaza pointed out that more workers will be forced to report to the office physically if the work from home scheme is based on number of workers than if it's based on revenues. So while PEZA will now guide outsourcing firms in implementing the new work from home scheme, Plaza said they will continue to send an appeal for a revenue based arrangement. Okay, let's go straight to the BPO sector and this one to find out exactly how they feel about a possible return to on-site work. We'll talk to Celeste Ilagan, board trustee of the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines, or IBPAP. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Jess. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, again, what are your thoughts on this one? Are you even averse to the idea of 10% of the workforce returning on site?
Uh, Jess, we actually appreciate that we were given the privilege to work at home at 90% levels and 10% on site. This is something that we have actually requested, and therefore, having been given this privilege, we very much appreciate what FIRB's decision has been. The
Mm,
matter now that we have to sort of smoothen out is how to transition from reporting our 10% of workforce to be able
mm,
to determine
yeah.
revenue levels, because
Mm,
in the past, before the 2020 termination of the work from home policy of PEZA, we were allowed to use revenue as basis for our compliance. So now, if headcount is going to be used, our reporting and monitoring to PEZA will be different. So it is the main issue for now. But we are
mm.
already working with PEZA
Do it.
in terms
Mhm,
of how they would like to implement this. We have not officially gotten the resolution of the FIRB actually,
mhm.
and therefore we have not discussed details with PEZA on how they plan to roll out the guidelines for this specific provision or resolution of the FIRB.
Do I take it to mean, ma'am, that you are even supportive of this resolution from the FIRB? If that's the case, where, where then is PESA coming from?
No, okay. So let me clarify. uh, the request of the industry is really to base our compliance to revenue.
Okay.
But the FIRB decided that instead of revenue, they will base it on headcount. So that's a decision that we are willing to accept. And
Okay.
what is more important now actually is a clarification of what happens if certain companies are not able to comply with the 90-10 split, considering their prioritization of health and safety of their employees
Mhm.
rather than getting all of them or 10% of them to go back on
Mm.
site.
Okay. Can you nuance that a bit for us more? What's the difference here between 10% of the workforce returning as compared to 10% based on revenue? How much of a difference in terms of number of employees are we talking about here?
I don't have specific numbers, but you see in the BPO sector,
Mhm.
there are headcounts that have different revenue revenue potential, sort of. So
Okay.
FTEs earn based on account that they serve, based on clients, and therefore it is likely that there are companies that may have less than 10% of the workforce in the office, but they are already earning 10% of the revenues.
Okay, got it. Now, given that as well, I mean, the thing is, you already have a lot of industries returning on site. Why not the BPO sector? Is part of your workforce already working hybrid mode or on site as well?
Yes, we have actually been working hybrid since the start of the
Mhm.
pandemic. As you know, we are among the essential industries that have been allowed to work 100%, but this is like a balance of work from home and work on site. So we have not really stopped sending people to work on site, but there are companies that have less than 10%
Okay.
on site because of, as I said, the prioritization of health and safety of workers, and that they follow the global directives of their headquarters. And so in this situation, companies have different strategies of letting people back to work. There are companies that will make sure that 10% at least are in the office. Our voice, aside of the industry, has at least 40% that are already on site. So this really depends on what the strategy is of the company in the levels of people that they are bringing back to office. And a big part of this decision is the vaccination situation of our employees. We have encouraged our employees to go and have their vaccination taken so that there is less concern for their health and safety if ever they need to go back to work already.
Okay, good thing that you pointed that as well, since you've been mentioning this throughout the interview as well, that a big factor would be the vaccination of your workforce. How's that going along so far?
Um, we have two ways of getting our employees vaccinated. As you know, the LGUs have been really active in making sure that residents or workers in their cities are given the vaccination. We also have an internal vaccination program. We have signed up with tripartite agreements with government and the private sector.
Mhm.
And the BPO industry has acquired about 1 million doses of vaccines, and we have started receiving these vaccines and working with the private sector in terms of inoculation. When the supply comes, we make sure that our employees go to the vaccination areas
Mhm.
that have been designated for them, and So we think that it's going smoothly. We also have established partnerships with certain LGUs to accelerate the inoculation of BPO workers in their certain localities. We have a partnership with Quezon City, and we have such arrangements also with Makati, Pasig, also Taguig, to make sure that these types of engagements help our industry accelerate vaccination.
Okay, you have a lot of partnerships. Do you already have at least an estimate as to how many of your employees or percentage at least of the workforce is already fully vaccinated?
I don't have the numbers now, but in terms of Quezon City, for example, more than 11,000 of our BPO workers in that city have already been vaccinated under this specific program, Jess.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back to at least the FIRB's decision here, again, 10% returning on site by March. It's going to increase incrementally at least in the near future as well. Are you ready at least for more and more of your workforce go back to work? Or is the hybrid setup here to stay for the sector, for good at least?
Yeah, the industry understands that the global trend is really for a hybrid work model, and just 1 year ago, this is something that we didn't think will happen, in this wide scale basis. But because of the pandemic, the measures to transform to work from home really has been accelerated. But there are accounts that will need people, our employees, to work on site, and therefore we are getting ready for that part of the business
Mhm.
that will really need employees to work on site. And if the March deadline is nearing, we hopefully will be able to get an extension from the FIRB,
Okay.
so that we don't get people in large numbers in
How
the
much of an
next
extension
few
are you
months.
looking at here, ma'am?
Sorry.
How much of an extension are you looking at here?
Well, the emergency state of the country in the pandemic has been declared up to September 2022.
Right.
And at least up to that period, we hope that we'll be able to get Jessica.
All right. Thank you very much again for your updates and your time this afternoon. You have Celeste Ilagan, a board trustee of the ID and Business Process Association of the Philippines, or IBPAP. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Jess.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, November 3, 2021. Catch Business World Live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos, and we are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.